Hello, my name is Wes Dawson, this is Gabagool, Nate, and I would like to welcome you to the Pandering, Volume 1. So a good friend once told me you should always stay true to yourself and never pander to your fan base. Well, in this series I say, fuck that, we are going to pander directly. Because, normally I would agree with that sentiment, except I've made this bet where if I didn't have at least 5,000 monthly listeners by this date, I would have to get a to-scale Red Dragon-esque tattoo of Rodney Dangerfield on my back. Don't feel like doing that. So this is Volume 1 of a 3-part series where I will pander to my 3 most popular episodes of Gabagool Nate. And of course those being the definitive American political podcast by a Canadian born and raised in rural Quebec, En Français, s'il vous plaît, where I did a all-French episode, as well as the Doobie Doobie Pothead Stoner episode, where we discussed weed, smoking weed, and other stuff I can't remember right now. Now, of course, all of those anecdotes were purely hypothetical, as I am not some degenerate pot-smoking dopehead. These stories are told for entertainment and educational purposes, because personally, I don't touch the stuff. Weed is a terrible substance that turns people into bloated, vapid shells of themselves while it slowly erodes their liver. No, wait, that's for a different episode, never mind. So this week, we will be talking about our most excellent neighbors to the south, the United States of America. It is an awesome place with some awesome people, but just like anywhere or anyone, it has its issues. So let's slip the proverbial good time into your drinks. Let's get going. And just as the borders of the U.S. are so vast, the subjects that could be discussed are endless as well. So let's keep in mind this is an 8-minute podcast, and I will try to touch everything and everyone. You'll learn to like it. So where to begin? The entertainment industry, the fight for racial equality, politics. There's so much to choose from. I know the big hitter lately seems to be your new president. After the overcooked sausage had stepped aside to allow the Crypt Keeper to take over, I'm just glad he's doing presidential stuff now and not telling spooky stories anymore like he used to do on HBO when I was a kid. Now, a disclaimer before anybody thinks this might be a hit piece of some type. I love the U.S. The U.S. is great. I've only had the pleasure of traveling to the Northeast, but I hope to see much more of it once this fake disease is done actually killing 500,000 of your brothers and sisters. So music, movies, sports, peanut butter, pornography. There's so much to love in the U.S. Now, personally, I've had almost all positive experiences when I've been down there, but the issue, I think, for many of your problems has to do with just the sheer volume of people. Are there a few million certifiable morons in the U.S.? Yes, absolutely. That's more than apparent. But it's not an attack on you as a whole. It's statistics. Imagine in a group of friends. One of those 3 friends is bound to be the dumber one. There's someone who always is the dumb one of the group. So extrapolate that to 330 million people. You're going to have huge swaths of these quote-unquote educated people arguing that the earth is flat or the existence of rain or whatever the hell it is. You shouldn't be ashamed of that. That's just part of the package deal. And I grew up watching American television. We had some weird janky setup where our satellite was picking up signals from a friend in Pennsylvania. Not really sure how it worked, but it was awesome. We had scrambled pornography, and instead of Degrassi, I got to watch Saved by the Bell. I had an ex-girlfriend who would be upset when I trashed Quebec television. And I had to explain to her, it's not a language issue. It's not an Anglophone-Francophone thing. It's Canadian TV as a whole sucks, and I couldn't bear to watch any of it. It's pure fucking garbage. I like me some nice American-made media entertainment. So all that being said, I can see a lot of similarities between the U.S. and Quebec. Now, slow down before you start pulling out the pitchforks, all right? There are some stark contrasts as well, but definitely some similarities. It's kind of like if the U.S. was gold bullion, Quebec is like the gold wrapper around the Ferrero Rocher chocolates. Because, U.S. could be the undisputed best country in the world, just as Quebec could be, not to insult anyone, the best province in Canada, but their own internal bullshit will never let that happen. So while the U.S. is embroiled in this fight for racial equality and social justice, we have Quebec adopting Law 96, taking a big, steamy, very distinct dump on those ideals. The U.S. is hindered with corporate government corruption without accountability, systemic racism, and whatever the fuck this new trend is of bothering people in public for a 15-second vapid thirst trap. That's your thing, enjoy it. And Quebec is not much better with its own discriminatory and predatory language laws, cultivating, propagating, and enforcing a government-engineered social divide of its people. Good job. Now, when it comes to federal politics up here in Canada, our system's a fucking joke. You can pretty much choose between the ignorant, spineless cowards or the apologetic, spineless cowards, or a bunch of fringe parties that will never have any actual power. Basically, you can choose, do you want to wear a paper bag on your head while this man forces himself on you, or do you want to go all natural? But in the States, this whole Republican-Democrat fight, it's weird because, the hardliners on either side sound like complete fucking idiots. Like the extreme left, people can identify as dolphins and people should be paid $60 an hour to turn a spatula over. And on the right, pedophilia is a partisan issue somehow, and that the government should be taking your money but not actually offering any social programs or investments in your future. Just take my money and fuck us, right? Like that I'd never quite understood either. But the US gets a lot of flack for things that they shouldn't. Capitalism, materialism. Yeah, every system is flawed. Communism, socialism, capitalism, they're all great on paper. The problem is they don't play out that well. Hell, an economy centered around trading off hand jobs and homemade whiskey would be great on paper until people started passing around fucking rubbing alcohol and they have callous palms. Then the whole system goes to shit. And also, it seems that the US, as well as a small select handful of other countries, are the only place able to install a crane without it fucking toppling over. The amount of videos of just cranes as the second they lift anything flipping over is absolutely ridiculous. If only there was like a profession or an order that specialized in, like a science that deals with matter and energy and their interactions, like a kind of physics of how things work. But I think for this week's episode, instead of kissing too much ass, we're going to touch on something I've seen over the past year is how willingly stupid people are to expose themselves. Because the thing is, dumb people are everywhere in every country of every denomination. But the irony is when stupid people try using big words that aren't part of their everyday vernacular and they have no fucking idea what they're saying. Someone had said to me before the word super furious. And I was like, is that like a turbo Hitler salute or do you maybe mean superfluous? Like, this is ridiculous. For some reason, stupid people just have this fixation with using words that end in ism. You guys have a U.S. Congresswoman who loved talking about how Biden is spreading fascism and communism to your country. What? You do understand those are two completely different things. They're not the same at all. They may have ism at the end of the word, but they are not the same thing. And honestly, the other thing I've noticed is the lowest common denominator for people who love labeling things as fascism is that they do support one big ism, and it ain't pacifism. I think ultimately what we need to remember is that people are people regardless of where they're from. Some are smarter than others, some are dumber than others, and some should just be beaten with a rubber hose. Unfortunately, we are out of time and we weren't able to touch on some of the regular weekly segments. We will make up for that in the coming weeks. So thank you for listening. Please listen, like, share, and subscribe. And for next week, you better hope you have blonde hair because I'm going full Nick Cannon on everyone. And that ought to be a hoot. And please don't forget, if you're going to spit at me in public, I hope you've had both of your vaccinations.